Hello. Hi,
Hi.
Lisa. Hi, Suzanne.
Hello, guys.
Good to see you. I was going to say good to see you again, but we've not had Suzanne here before, have we, Lisa?
No, it's lovely to have you. It's nice
Mm.
to have another girl on the scene.
I
So
feel
here,
very honoured, so thanks for having me
our
on.
first special guest, our first special guest. So this is another instalment of our East Rocks Conversations. And just before we get started, I'll introduce myself again. So I'm Ruth Coates, and I am a psychotherapist based in East Lothian.
Hello, and I'm Lisa, and I am a coach at Go Train East Rocks and also owner of Super Being.
And hello, I'm Suzanne, and my business is Body Needs, which does a lot of different things, but mainly to get people out of pain and to get you moving a bit better.
Great. And because of the three of us, we need to acknowledge that we'll have a bit of a longer chat today. So get settled in with a cuppa. And yeah, let's start. Our subject today is training in lockdown and beyond, because hopefully soon we'll be beyond it, kind of seeing the edges of it now. But really, we've levered in the real kind of subject, which is overtraining, which is something that we've all noticed and been talking about, overtraining out there in the world, and really kind of getting to grips with what it means for us personally, professionally, and just having a good chat about it, good play about with that term. So what does overtraining mean to you, Suzanne?
Overtraining is something that I see in my job quite regularly. Lots of people come to me once their body starts to break down, and it's started to cause them pain somewhere. So they come into me and they start talking about what got them to that place, and they maybe explain about an injury. They might explain that they've got knee pain, and it must have been because they went over on a stone or something like that. But then as we start peeling things back, we start to find out that over a period of time leading up to that injury, there has been other things that's going on. So the body's only able to tolerate a certain amount of stressors. And there's lots of things in our life that are stressors, and exercise is one thing. Other things like just how we're dealing with life. So this current situation we're all in is a stressor for us. Add in any illnesses or problems with children, anything like that, they're all stressors, and there's only so much the body can tolerate. And eventually that capacity gets too much, and things overflow. We've probably heard the glass analogy quite a lot as it gets to the top, and the thing that makes the water spill over the glass doesn't need to be a big hose of water coming into the glass. It can just be one little drop, and that's enough. And for me, that's where overtraining, that's the result of overtraining. Overtraining has been all the little bits that is added into that glass to get it to that full top bit, without someone taking little bits out at the bottom to keep it full but healthy full.
So just now, I suppose, in the kind of context we're living in, things can be, that balance is really hard to find that we might have had before. So we might be more likely to overtrain.
Yeah, I think so. Exercise is definitely used as a coping strategy for lots and lots of people, and it's a healthy coping strategy at times. It really is. I mean, it's the thing that helps us keep our body moving. It helps us, our joints are moving well, our heart and lungs are being stretched, they're being used. We're making sure that we're reducing our risk for disease and all these good positive things. But it also is a stressor, and when we turn to it, which is great, there are times when it then tips over into not so great, and we don't always recognise it. And then in times like these, we just kind of, there's a wee bit ploughing on, and I'm certainly seeing that just now with people being in touch with me with some aches and pains and niggles and sort of general feelings of just a lethargy and things not being quite right in their system.
Yeah. So there are signs that show up that will tell us if we can tune in. to when we might be overtraining. Something will show up.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, there's lots of things that we all feel after a good heavy workout. The classic is your DOMS, or your delayed onset muscle soreness. And those of us, include myself in this, who have a background in kind of sports and high intense exercise, and always get a real sort of thrill out of, oh man, my arms were so sore after that, or my legs were so heavy. And those are the classic signs that I think most people will tune into. Because it's right there, and it's like, you know, slamming them in the face, they can't avoid it. But I do think there's other signs that we have to work a little bit harder to tune into. And those are the ones that they would maybe be, if we were able to tune into them and we were tuning into them early enough, we're reducing our likelihood of injury, for one. But there's also lots of other things that we could be avoiding as well.
Yeah, I wonder what other signs there might be then, Lisa. I'm just kind of thinking away myself what signs there might be about.
I suppose professionally, I think that as on top of everything that Suzanne has said in terms of the body giving you some feedback, I think probably mentally you're not, it's a case of, you know, there's a lot of people have maybe more time on their hands now than they have had previously, or indeed it's just that there's been a shift in how it looks. So maybe they're still working, maybe they're still, you know, doing everything they were doing, but they're not going to work. So the routine has changed ever so slightly. So because that has changed, the overall landscape is different. And I think, you know, speaking to some of our clients, it's some of them, you know, sort of say things like, well, yeah, I've got so much more time on my hands, you know, so I'm just training. And that's in many ways great, but I think the feedback there is, I think it's sort of overload, and because they have all the spare time, they're just doing the training and they're not really, it's not considered. So maybe before they had their allotted time that they gave to their training. So they did Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe a Saturday, whatever. And that was great. And maybe their in-between days were maybe a bike or, I don't know, a easy jog. But now it's kind of like pummeling. Every time there's a bit of time and a gap in the window. Oh, look, I've got an hour. I'll just go and do, you know, 100 push-ups.
Yeah.
Would you do that ordinarily? Would you do that out of these strange and weird times? I'm not sure. And it's counterproductive in the sense that, you know, our wellness around training comes from reducing our cortisol, making sure that we are looking after our body, making sure we're looking after our head, and making that lovely circle, you know, nice and connected. And I think sometimes when the overtraining, I think, has a negative effect as well, in that all the cortisol and the, oh God, I can never say it. Is it epinephrine?
Oh, I don't know. What's that?
It's another stress hormone, and they just shoot to the top, and they then become ever present in your body, and they're not welcome. They're not welcome stress hormones. And then they then have that counterproductive effect of your then, you know, maybe it's affecting sleep, it's affecting food, you know, you maybe don't want to eat. And it's just like, it becomes a situation where your body's in a lot of stress. You might not see it like that. And then what you do is, because you feel stressed out, I just need to train. That's what I need to do. I just need to work out, and then I'll be fine. But maybe that's not what you need. I don't know.
Tell you what I've found personally with that, actually, when I can get into a mindset of I am feeling stressed for A, B, C, D, or E, usually a combination. And what I know works sometimes is to train and to do something really heavy and hard. And yeah, sometimes that helps. But if I carry on doing that as well as my usual life stresses, then I'm going to fall. And I mean, I'm going to do a workout and feel really lethargic, and I'm not going to be my best. Or I'm actually not going to feel motivated to do anything. And that is a feeling of low mood and flatness.
Yeah.
And I know what that is, because that is stress, and our bodies can only handle so much of the activating stress levels, those in the cortisol and etc. you're talking about. And then we go into shutdown. Our nervous systems can't handle too much of that. And that's where the low mood and flatness can come in. So if I pile on more and more of a certain kind of exercise on top, then I'm not serving myself well at all. And my sleep is affected actually as well. And I know my gut health is affected. So what I try and do, and I'm interested in what you ladies do on kind of rest and recovery days, if that's such a thing for you, is I do something different. So I'll do something more flowy, whether that's yoga or whether it's a really long walk, if I can do that with my time. It's still movement. I know I still need my movement, but it's something different. And I don't plan that. It's maybe just what I feel like on the day. And it's more of a tuning into my system. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah, completely. I think that aspect's really important to be recognised, that is training. That is part of training. So I think when we use the word training, some of us, and certainly myself historically, has kind of associated that word training with putting the word hard in front of it, and then associated hard with really high intensity and something that requires a lot out of my physical body. But that's not the only way of training. You know, if we were professional athletes, we would be training across a broad spectrum of movement that caters for a physical aspect, but also connection between mind and body. And then, I mean, you see it now, like in football in particular, they're getting quite big in supporting mental health. And that's a recognition that the commodity that these clubs have, they are athletes, and they need an all-round approach into their health and into their training. So I've shifted in recent years to try and think more about my training as a whole, and that there's aspects where I will do that hard training where, you know, it feels like my heart's jumping out my chest and my arms and like everything's aching, it's heavy weights or whatever. And then I want other aspects of my training that's concentrating on the quality of my movement, what sort of control do I have over, if I'm standing on one leg, how much can I rotate my torso without my hip starting to shudder and shake? I'm not puffing and panting, but I'm working hard. And then things like you mentioned, like getting out for a walk, slowing it down. Some yoga is another one that I've found that is quite useful. But yeah, I'm just trying to aim to have a more well-rounded approach and basically consider me as I'm an athlete. I'm maybe not a top performing athlete, but I am an athlete, and every aspect of me needs my time, attention and effort. And just because it's not the traditional hard training doesn't mean it hasn't got worth or benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think living for those big workouts is great. And there's nothing probably more satisfying than lying on your back in a pool of sweat going, whoa, that was so hard, but it was bloody brilliant. You know, that is a great feeling. Your endorphins are shooting through the roof. It's a fantastic feeling. But I think, you know, and certainly as a lady of a certain age, I'm thinking, you know, there's only so much of that I can actually do. Like seriously, that I can recover from and that I can allow myself to be, because I know that when I work, that when I'm in that state, when I'm lying in a state of just like sweating, you know, and but feeling great at the same time, I don't want to be there the next day. You know, I'm happy to say okay, let's have another one of those maybe next week. I'm not, I'm not rushing straight back into that. That's definitely not where I'm at. And I'm also thinking that, yeah, okay, if you're a professional athlete, then yeah, your body will be training to probably pummel yourself a lot harder. But then you've got all the help. You've got a nutritionist for you. You've got your mental health person, your psychologist. You've got your sports psychologist. You've got a whole team of people that are there for you to help you perform at your very, very best. I don't have that, but you know, I have just got my own personal indicator, my own little compass. And I think therein lies a little bit of that whole thing about, you know, the dark side of wellness is that, you know, what leads us to want to be a sweaty mess on the floor and hurting every single day? How is that, you know, where is that coming from? And it can be coming from lots of different places, which I'm sure you can help with, Ruth. I just think that I know I've had a few clients myself that, you know, if you take a very, very basic example of someone who trains to eat. So there's zero enjoyment in any of their training because they are training so they can have the cake. And it's a punishment. So that's maybe a whole other concept and a whole other talk, but it's very much part of where the why comes from in our training.
Yeah.
You know, why do we want, why does it take us to be totally bossed up and coming to you, Suzanne, in a mess to realize maybe I've overdone it? What are we not listening to? Why are we so busy and not listening? Because if I'm sure it's there, I'm sure the little signposts are there, whether it's the niggle, whether it's the, you know, whatever it might be. What is it that makes us feel that we can't miss it?
I think it's a really interesting and complex picture, isn't it? But I think probably to boil it down to one word maybe is the word should. I think there's a lot of shoulds in this. I should be a certain way. I should do a certain thing. I should feel discomfort for whatever reason. And I think also social media has a lot to answer for there. And again, you could boil that down to comparing ourselves to others. Our self-worth relies on how good we are compared to someone else. And I think that has proliferated. I don't know whether you guys agree, but recently, you know, it's just...
it's everywhere. Yeah. It's everywhere. And it's that thing where, you know, I'm guilty of doing that and going, oh God.
Oh, you can set your, it does.
I'm positively, I'm positively lazy. And, you know, from a coach's perspective, that, you know, rings a lot of bells for me because I'm just kind of thinking, oh my God, should I be doing that? Crikey, I teach people how to be good and be strong and be capable. And I don't do any of that. You know, if, you know, I'm not wearing my Lycra on a day, does that mean I'm failing? Does that mean I'm, you know, I've got my jeans on, guys. So, and I'm just thinking, isn't it great to be in Lisa clothes, you know, and in the other side of Lisa that isn't coaching and training. This is great. Today I had the best shower. I put on some tan, I painted my toenails, and I put on some clothes that aren't training clothes. And, you know, and that's part of who I am as well.
Exactly. And that was what I was kind of thinking as you were talking there, is like sometimes it can be all we are. You know, if I do this workout really well, then I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm an okay person. I've done my absolute best, or you know, but what, you know, what's the kind of, what have we got left after that? I think for ourselves and for each other.
I think it's also a little bit about control as well, isn't it? It's a bit about control. If I can't control other things, at least I can control that aspect.
Oh, totally.
That 30-minute workout, I can give my whole life to that. I can smash that, but maybe it's because there's other things that I can't control.
And I think it's so important that actually is that it's not about, and we really wanted to note this, didn't we? It's not about being critical or judgmental about what people's kind of workouts look like at the moment or how they approach exercise in general, but it's just about noticing for ourselves, actually, isn't it? About where that line is, what that balance looks like. And you had talked a bit, Suzanne, as we were kind of preparing for this, about how we might be thinking we're at the top of our game and training really hard every day, but actually there are other systems in our bodies that aren't best served by that, and it has an impact.
Some of the big things that the majority of us tend to notice are their symptoms, and they're symptoms that come along further down the line. They're pretty, for somebody like me in my professional capacity, when I'm hearing someone's story, those symptoms are big alarm bells, really big alarm bells. Mm-hmm. And we're not all able to tune in to the earlier alarm bells, myself included. But those are the ones that I think would benefit us long term if we were able to pick up there. So just like when we are overtraining, the system, all your systems in your body, you have a heap of different systems that make all this thing work, and they all work together, interplay, and there's so much connection going on, and you can't take one away and impact that and think that the rest is not going to be affected. It's not how the body works. Sometimes we get, when I did a lot of my training, talked about how the body is like a car, and in my profession I'd be like the mechanic, and it's not. There is no machine that is like the body, and we don't even know. I'm pretty confident we don't even know like a tenth of what there is to know about it. But what we know, I'll say we as in a bit more, it's our job to know a bit more compared to what someone out there who's just trying to exercise and be active knows, is there's a big difference. So for me, I feel like I've got a responsibility to get a message out there, and I do try and educate people when they come into my clinic that there are potentially other signs there. So as you overtrain and your body isn't able to prioritize that recovery, the musculoskeletal system that gets downregulated, and that's not working quite as well. You've got all that cortisol that Lisa was talking about, so you're in that sympathetic nervous state, and that's here comes a big bear, I need to run away from that, and your body is on high alert at all times. That means it cannot get into parasympathetic, and parasympathetic is rest, digest, repair. So if you are in that place where your cortisol is up here, you're running away from the bear 24/7, your body cannot repair. Whether that's the food you're ingesting in your mouth and your digestive system being able to process all that and take all the goodness and all the nutrients, especially if you're someone that is on a top-notch, you've really worked out your macros in your diet, you've got really good quality food. If you're constantly in fight or flight, is your body absorbing all those quality nutrients? I would suggest that it's not. No. And then the big thing about exercising, we're creating lots of minor, like really, really tiny micro tears within our muscles for them to regenerate and regrow and repair. But that process takes a little bit of time. So if we're not getting enough breaks in between heavy, intense exercise, so our cortisol's up, we're all elevated in here, and we're not getting into rest, digest, and repair, how do the gains happen? Never mind, how does somebody who has an actual injury, how do we recover well? But how do we ensure we can maximize our own potential as well? So ironically, overtraining leads to a decrease in performance, which is what a lot of us are actually chasing, is improved performance.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing, just that whole, the metabolic imbalance as well that overtraining creates. And everything that you have said, and Ruth as well, just the lack, the kind of, as you say, the flatness, not wanting to train because you're done in.
You have to.
Yeah, and then to not listen. Yeah, and then to not listen to that, to not be your own person and have your own tune to play, to get off that story, to get off that kind of social media, I am, therefore I must kind of story. And, you know, I was just thinking, what is the worst that could happen? Just to pause, and be still, and not to be trying to make something happen, not to be willing something to happen. So, you know, if you are feeling flat or you are feeling tired, not to be trying to drum it up. Right, need to get myself into this, woo, jiggle myself up and get myself into the, don't try and make things happen. Try and maybe just stop and have a wee listen and just see what your wee inner Suzanne, Ruth, Lisa is saying, because that's the kind voice, that's the voice that cares about you deeply, that's the place of wisdom and the wee voice that knows exactly what you need in that moment at that time.
So, and that's one of the that's one of the earlier alarm bells. That's not the symptom alarm bell that's loud and glaring. It's one of the earlier ones.
Yeah, and I guess, sorry, Suzanne, I'm just getting that. Ideally, we would want to respond to that early voice, but it's not always the case because of our different lives, our different ways of being, all sorts of things go into that pot. But at some point, we're saying there's a scale. And what we want to avoid is those more kind of extreme end where it becomes psychological and physical, actually, harm. For me, a really good, like, it's just picking up on what you were saying there about the nervous system, Suzanne, and about the parasympathetic versus sympathetic. For me, there's and it's actually in the kind of theory, is a blended state as well, which exercises, and it's play. And it's, you know, you're not resting and digesting. You're not kind of sat back down, doing nothing, let your kind of system, let your stomach do its job, your gut. And you're not stressed. You're not running from the bear. But it's a blended state. And for me, if a workout feels like hard stress, then I'm doing the wrong thing in the wrong place at the wrong time. But if it feels like play, maybe it feels a bit, you know, really hard to play, but it feels playful, then I know all of those things are okay. So that's how I try and tune into stuff. I don't always get it right by a long shot, but it helps.
I like that. I like that.
I think that's important
nice
to acknowledge that it's not about getting it right all the time. It's about trying to listen and trying to do the right thing by yourself and playing around with intensity and making sure that your body gets a spectrum of intensity, as well as a spectrum of a range of movement working in different directions. So let's not flex and extend all the time. Like, where's our lateral movement? Where's our rotational movement?
I think it gets a lot more interesting then as well.
Yeah, completely. And it really challenges your body. Your body suddenly goes, oh, what's that? What are we doing? This is something new. This is something different. You know, it might be something that keeps you a little bit more motivated. And then when you come to something else, you go, oh, actually, that was beneficial. Because that's how your body responds. It responds to a combined stimulus. It's not just sort of two-dimensional at all.
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that you do something completely different and totally varied from what you think is going to bust your backside. So you look at something and go, really, is that it? Is that it? Is that what we're doing? Oh my God. And then you do it and you realize that actually it whips your backside in a completely different way. You're sweating like a pig, but you don't feel you've actually done anything. And you think, bloody hell, the stimulus from that was amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't feel I really did anything, but clearly my body was working really hard to do whatever I needed to do. And I love that. I love that feedback. From something that maybe you might sort of turn your nose up at, maybe initially, because you think, oh, but I won't be lying on the floor in a sweaty pool going, oh, do you know what I mean? So I really, I'm a big fan of that, actually, really like that.
Yeah.
And I think some of that playful movement that you were talking about, Ruth, falls into that category, because I mean, how many times have we been around, well, you guys, maybe your own children, me, my background, the coaching and things, I forever want to do fun things with the kids, and I'm like, right, okay, let's do a cartwheel, let's do a forward roll, I'll just demo. Oh, what was that? Oh God, I can't do it. And we stopped playing.
Totally.
And when we were kids, we played all the time, or certainly, like I would say, our generations did. And you explored movement and you had fun with it. And I don't remember aches and pains quite as much as now, and maybe it's something we should be revisiting a little bit more of as adults, and trying to help for the movement side, but also like what you were saying, Ruth, about the getting into that sort of combined state of not quite parasympathetic, not quite sympathetic, like getting in there a little bit.
Yeah, let's explore that bit a bit more.
Yeah.
We're probably kind of pushing our self-imposed time limit of half an hour at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But you had something really nice to kind of finish it off for us, Suzanne, and as our kind of guest, it might be nice for you to kind of have the final say. But you had a wee nugget, not chicken nugget, but a wee nugget for us.
I'll have that later.
Damn it!
McDonald's is opening again soon, ladies. So
yeah, back to it.
It's good enough for Usain Bolt. It's good enough for you guys.
No judgment.
No, exactly.
No.
He's doing all right for himself, I think. Yeah. So what we were talking about earlier is just when we were all saying what are we going to kind of think about and talk about. I've been thinking about this chat all day, and what I was going to say, and one of the things that just kept coming back to me was a statement that I used to say and wholeheartedly believe, and I now have transitioned into almost saying it very tongue-in-cheek, and as of today I think I'm going to say it and go back to saying it very wholeheartedly, and when I explain it hopefully you'll understand. So I used to say go hard or go home a lot, and mean I need to go and I need to bust my gut hard on every single workout, everything that I do, and I need to be that big sweaty mess on the floor or wherever it is. And then more recently I've started to think of go hard or go home as kind of like, well, why would you do that? Like, you're just going to get yourself into all sorts of bother, which with reflection is a wee tad judgy, and I don't want to be that person. So my new one from today is go hard or go home, but go hard on every single aspect of yourself. And that includes going hard at recovery, going hard at being slow, going hard or moving slow, going hard at being good and kind to yourself, and going hard at listening to little Suzanne or little whoever it is.
Yeah.
So go hard or go home.
I love that. Go hard on it all, and including the recovery, and I think, and that could be the most challenging part of overall fitness, couldn't it be? Yeah.
I think if we're all honest, it probably is. You know, because there's a competitive element in there too that, hey, I would consider myself not that competitive, but you know, sometimes when the 3, 2, 1 go goes, I am competitive with me, and regardless of the niggles and regardless of anything, I don't listen to little Lisa when she's going, you're all right, calm down. Is
that not Granny Lisa?
Maybe that's the Lisa. Not a granny yet though, not a granny yet.
I like that revision though, Suzanne. I think that's great. The revision of go hard or go home now means go hard on it all, on recovery too. Yeah, I love that. Love that to finish. Cool. All right.
Excellent.
Thanks, ladies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, pleasure. You're welcome back.
Thanks.
Great. Lovely. Well, yeah. See you again, guys.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.